To say the least, yes.
Yeah. So Tua, on a podcast, Dan Levitard podcast, came out and basically said Brian Flores was a terrible person, and every day told me how horrible I was. And it was such a breath of fresh air to have young Mike McDaniel from Kyle Shanahan's system, his coaching tree, who every day wakes up and says, I'm so lucky to have you. He said, basically, what would it be like in your life if one person told you you were awful and no good and was just treated you poorly, and then somebody else walked in and said, I can't believe, I'll put my arms around you, how lucky we are. And he called Brian Flores, who's now a coordinator with the Vikings, a terrible person. And you know what I thought of? When there's a term that is used in the NBA, and we use it all the time on this show. We call it Villanova guys. And it speaks very well of Jay Wright and the Villanova program, although now he's moved on to broadcasting. It means not much ego, hardworking, relentless, coachable, no baggage, love the game, great locker room guy. You say Villanova guy, it's like everybody in the NBA wants a Villanova guy. It speaks beyond just the player. It's the culture that they came from. And I think as Bill Belichick looks for a job next year, and this broadcasting thing, that's not what he ever dreamed of doing. There's a new term, and it's used in football, and it's called Belichick guys. They're all combative. They're obnoxious. Flores, Matt Patricia, Joe Judge, Josh McDaniel, Bill O'Brien. They used to call Bill O'Brien apparently Teapot. Brady did and Brian Hoyer did because he boiled over all the time in meetings. And this thing with Brian Flores, it's beyond obnoxious. It's cruel. And it's essentially the opposite of the Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan tree. The D'Amico Ryans, the Robert Salas, the Kevin O'Connells, they come out, they're collaborative, they get along with people, they're pro-player, Belichick guys. And, you know, Brian Flores probably watched Belichick dog cuss Brady for years. I mean, Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, people have come out, even those who are favorable with Belichick, and said, I can't believe what Tom put up with. And it's becoming crystal clear. Sorry, Belichick fanboys and sycophants. It's becoming crystal clear is that Tom Brady and only Tom Brady elevated Belichick and the entire staff. Josh McDaniel couldn't get along with Derek Carr and Jay Cutler. Matt Patricia couldn't get along with Matt Stafford. Who fights with Matt Stafford? Stafford gets along with everybody. This is what it is. Brian Flores called a terrible person. And I don't think Tua is the best quarterback in the league, but he's a nice kid. He's a nice guy. Everybody I know that's ever dealt with him really likes him. Really a professional, works really hard. Villanova guys in the NBA is a great term. Belichick guys in the NFL is toxic. And the entire staff, they watch their mentor. And it's Belichick. Increasingly, these young quarterbacks coming out of college, NIL, they've made $1 million or $2 or $3 or $4 or $5 million. I don't want to put up with this nonsense. Got to be collaborative. You can't be obnoxious and rigid. And for the record, Belichick, better than all his assistants, 11 years in the NFL without Tom Brady as a starter, 1 playoff win. And he's the best of the Belichick guys, Bill. So I don't think as Belichick keeps looking for work, I don't think this is good. I think there's now a term. I think we now just see obnoxious, non-collaborative, authoritative. No thanks. Bill.
Okay. So I really want to talk about this in a few different ways because I wholeheartedly agree with everything Colin is saying. And I did a video talking about Tua and how I think it's so awesome that he has the courage to come out and say these things that I think once upon a time he maybe would not have. So I think it's just really awesome. And I'm really happy for him that he has connected with McDaniel and now that they have that relationship. And I think we consider like toughness and anger as like a masculine trait, as being, it's suck it up, buttercup type of mentality. It's why some people were not liking Caleb Williams because he showed emotions and was crying with his mom and, paints his nails or whatever. And they see that, that these guys are just soft, right? Everyone always, they're just soft. They're soft. And it's just not real. It's actually not the reality. We know this because when you look at children that are raised by a more militant parenting style, those kids end up more often than not incredibly messed up, incredibly maladaptive. They're the ones that end up often hating their family, hating their parents, failing to thrive in life, getting addicted to substances, having troubles at work, being bad parents themselves, and continuing the cycle. It's very clear. Now, of course, you can go too far on the other end of the spectrum, where it's just you're perfect, you're perfect, you're perfect, you're amazing, you're amazing, you're amazing, I love you, I love you, I love you. And then those people have problems as well. And that's why it's always balance. And what Tua was sharing was there was no balance. It was just, I'm just going to yell at you and tell you how bad you are nonstop. And that is awful. That is not the way to success. That is not the type of, that's not even like the society that we're working towards. I understand that there's a lot of people resistant to change and changing of a culture and changing of a society. And listen, I'm not here to get political at all. I'm really, really not. Because I think we're doing lots of things great, and I think we're doing plenty of things wrong in terms of the directions we're going. But I think it's safe to say that the more patient and understanding of a society that we become, the better we will become. And when you look at something like a football team and a football player, that's just a microcosm of that. It's a smaller example of that at play. And it's why we can see what works and what doesn't work. He just listed all those other coaches, and they all fail spectacularly. And it makes sense, especially as the kids that are growing up that are now entering the league. They're kind of shedding that mentality that was maybe more popular in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And so we can say that they're wrong and that they're too soft and that they need to toughen up, or we can say actually what was happening in the past was wrong, and that actually these guys are more along the lines of what it should be than not, and it's actually up to the coaches to change and to let go of their ways. And that's what I kind of rely on more. Again, I think it's balanced. I think Shanahan and McVay and Kevin O'Connell and Andy Reid, they're balanced. They're not just like, you're so great, you're so great, you're so great. They will call you out when it needs to be called out. But their default is going to be more supportive. The Minnesota Vikings are famously like that with Kevin O'Connell. There is no yelling. It's no, what are you doing? You're so wrong. You're dumb. You're this or that. It's, this is what you did wrong. Let me explain to you what you need to do. And let's see you do it. It's more supportive. I've played for coaches that made you feel like no matter what you did, it was wrong. And I am a very tough person. I'm not just saying that to be like, oh, I'm so tough, but I am. I've gone through a ton in my life, and have failed many times spectacularly, which also has made me, stronger and tougher. But I have played for some coaches that made it feel impossible to play for. You just shrink. You just get crushed. And it becomes unbearable. And that is what it felt like what was happening to Tua. And I played for other coaches that made me feel like not only that I belonged, but empowered me to be a leader. That if I made a mistake, I remember one time, it's like if I made a mistake, I felt crippled by it. But then another coach, where if I made a mistake, I come, running in and say, hey, I'm sorry, this happened. And I had one coach that said, I don't need an explanation. I know it just happened. It's all good. Like, it was just like, we don't need to talk about it. I know that's not you. I know it was just a mistake. I know it was just an error. We don't gotta act like this is a big deal. I'm not gonna yell at you. It just happened. It just is what it is. Keep going. And it empowered me. I didn't sit. I didn't marinate in it. I didn't think about it anymore. I just went out and continued to play. I was empowered to be like, yeah, rolled off my back. It was nothing. That's what good coaches do. They empower you. They make you feel like you belong. And that is what a McDaniel does. That is what a Shanahan does. That is what a McVay does. That is what an Andy Reid does. And that is clearly not what a Brian Flores or a Bill Belichick does. And you know what? Keep that in the 70s and the 80s when we can romanticize that and say life was amazing back then, when it was a lot harder and harsher. And again, this isn't meant to be like a political take on any of this. It's really not. But this idea that the harder you are and the tougher everything is, that like the better you are, the more manly you are, the more masculine, the tougher you are, I don't see that being the case. Right? We've evolved to that. Marcellus Wiley talks about this a lot, where he says, when he was coming up playing football and stuff, he said, like, being focused was just putting a circle on the wall and just staring at it and nothing else. And that things had to change. That, as we've gotten more, more broader in a, more connected in a broader world, that it's like, that's no longer how you focus, where it's just one thing enough. You got to learn how to focus on many things at once. You got to learn how to say, I'm going to look at this, and I'm going to look at that, and I'm going to look at that, and I'm going to move this to the side for now. I'm going to focus on this, right? It's a lot more connected. You have to evolve. You can't just be stuck. And look at all the NFL teams. And if you want to say, oh, you're wrong, that's fine. But just look at all the NFL teams that are wildly successful and consistently great. They are evolving. They constantly evolve. Again, Andy Reid, McVay, Shanahan, Patrick Mahomes, they evolve. Even Tom Brady evolved his game as the rules changed. The Golden State Warriors evolved. They said, we're playing small ball. We're shooting these threes. They evolved. The greats continue to evolve. LeBron James evolved his game. He saw shooting mattered more and more as his NBA career unfolded, became a significantly better shooter. You have to evolve. If you don't, you get stuck in the past. And if you get stuck in the past, you get left behind. And that's clearly what's happening to Bill Belichick, as well as his coaching tree. And I think it's, I'm happy that Tua has spoken about this and has kind of shed some light on this. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think this is all just a bunch of nonsense and Tua just needs to toughen up? Or do you think there's a lot of truth to this? And kind of the evolving of, relationships and coaching and kind of how we kind of go about all this. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.